I'm Parker. I'm a 13-year-old, and 3 years ago I was involved in a very tragic car accident. I lost my leg in that accident. With Shriners Children, they allowed me to work with my prosthetics and get me through the process of getting back to playing sports and activities I did before that happened.
He's always done sports like that. Baseball, flag football, basketball.
When Parker first came to us after his accident, it was from the get-go, can I run now? It was never a slow transition back to just being a kid.
Parker wants to be active. He wants to play sports. He wants to play baseball and basketball. He wants to do things with his friends, and we want to provide him with the care and the devices that he needs to enable him to do that.
For 3 months, I was not able to walk at all. But when I first took my first step with my prosthetic, it was an amazing moment of my life, and it opened a new chapter for me. Thanks to Shriners Children's, I'm back in the game.
Hello, my name is Stuart Sullivan. I'm Chief Philanthropy Officer at Shriners Children's, and we welcome you here today for our webinar. This is a series of webinars that we are holding from time to time to really focus on the mission and what makes Shriners Children's so special. Shriners Children's has been treating children from all over the world and all over the United States and Canada for over 103 years. And we've been doing that regardless of the children's ability to pay or insurance status. And today we want to talk about something that really makes us distinct and special, and that's our prosthetics and orthotics program. And because it really is something where we are a world leader and something where we are able to literally change the life of a child almost instantaneously. So today I'm thrilled to be joined with JoAnne Kanas, who is our Corporate Director of Prosthetic and Orthotic Services. And in short, JoAnne and her team are really the people that make all of this magic happen. So JoAnne, please introduce yourself, talk a little bit about your background, how you got into this field, and maybe even talk about what makes you have a really special relationship with this program.
Well, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. I began my career as a pediatric physical therapist. So I work with kids really from 0 to 18, and a lot of those kids had orthotic and prosthetic devices. So I was very interested in that, so I decided to go back to graduate school and get my master's degree in orthotics and prosthetics. And Shriners Children's was really my first job out of my master's degree. I also have the unique opportunity to be a parent of a child with an acquired limb loss. My daughter has a below the elbow amputation, just below her elbow on the left side. So I kind of wear both hats.
And your daughter, from what I understand, is really a world-class athlete, Paralympian, attempting Paralympian, and she does what? She throws the javelin?
Yeah, she's an aspiring Paralympian. She's an elite athlete at the University of Alabama. She throws javelin and shot put with a prosthetic that was made for her at Shriners Children's.
Wow. And how long has she been a patient of ours?
Since she was 3 years old.
Since she was 3. So we've been involved in prosthetics and orthotics really since our very beginning, because as many of you know, our early days were treating children with polio. And polio treatment at the time, of course, required devices to allow children the ability to potentially walk. And so, JoAnne, kind of trace back where we've been, what devices used to be like, what devices are like today, and give us a little bit of history lesson on this program at Shriners.
It's really been exciting to see technology evolve and how it benefits our patients. In the two areas of technology that really benefit prosthetic and orthotic design is NASA, the space program. So here we really talk about having the use of stronger, lighter weight materials. And what I mean by that is the use of titanium, a carbon graphite, fiberglass, those things that make planes more aerodynamic, trickles down to our patients to be able to give them stronger devices that are much lighter in weight and are much more aerodynamically designed. The other place that really helps develop prosthetic technology is military conflict. So through the use of a lot of the more protective gear, many more of our soldiers are surviving what used to be fatal injuries. But with that, they are then having to come home and rehab with limb loss, traumatic amputations, spinal cord injuries, traumatic brain injuries. So that technology between those two really helps really trickle down to everyone across the world, and certainly our patients in particular. As an example of that, this is a pretty standard ankle-foot orthosis, so it helps control the ankle and the foot. It was what was used primarily through the 50s, 60s, and even into the 70s. It's metal, stainless steel, leather. It's attached to a shoe, and Stuart, it's pretty heavy.
I would estimate this is probably 15 pounds, if I had to guess.
Now, that's for an older child, so it's not quite a fair comparison, but this is a device that we would make now for that same indication. It's made from plastic. We choose the plastic by how much strength and flexibility the patient needs. They pick the pattern, so it helps make it a little more aesthetically pleasing. And even more important, it goes into a shoe. So kids can change their shoe wear every day and not be locked into an orthopedic brace. And that weight, I'll trade you.
Ounces, not pounds, ounces.
Exactly.
Amazing, just amazing. And this slips into any shoe. It can slip into a child's shoe, it can slip into a sneaker, it can slip into a dress shoe. They can literally wear this with just about any shoe that they would have in their closet.
Just about any shoe, but certainly all of their athletic and their more casual shoes.
Wow, and this is an example of a orthotic, correct?
Correct.
You're going to talk about the difference between orthotics and prosthetics, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
So orthotics are braces. They're made to support anatomy that's still there but may not be working properly. So you think of a brace with a fracture or scoliosis where there's a curve, or there's weakness, cerebral palsy, muscles need to be helped or inhibited in order to work properly. A prosthetic is an artificial limb, so we can kind of talk about that one. Here's some examples looking at the different technologies. This is a more traditional design where we have a prosthesis that goes all the way down to the foot, and that foot is a pretty simple foot, the line of it, and then has a cuff that holds it on. Whereas more commonly today for our prosthetics, where we are in a prosthetic, you're replacing what's missing. So they have an amputation of their foot. This is their socket, so that's what's remaining of their residual limb. And then we replace what's missing from there down, which in this case is a foot. But you can see the design of these are very different. The patient gets to pick that, and we can certainly talk about all the options that we have. And we can also have much more active, dynamic feet, depending on the activity that the patient's wearing, that the child's wearing.
So that we have another example over here of more of a full leg device, and one from the past and then one from the future or the present, if you will.
So this one again is an orthotic. So we're talking about a brace here. And this was very commonly used during the polio time frame at Shriners Children's, but also was used really through the 70s into even the early 80s. Again, like the other brace, it's metal. There's some stainless steel joints. Here it actually goes above the knee. The other one was an ankle foot orthosis. It controlled the ankle and the foot. Now we're controlling the knee. So now we have a knee joint. So we have a knee, ankle, foot orthosis. The cuffs are leather. The metal is bands and bars. And again, it's attached to an orthopedic shoe. Today, we make a design similar to this. So it still controls the knee, still has knee joints that bend. They're titanium and much stronger. The design is much more aesthetically pleasing. And again, it can go from shoe to shoe.
And the difference is about half the weight, correct? I mean, in terms of comparing this to that.
Absolutely, because you still have metal, but again, the metal is a much better design from NASA.
And this can be customized, obviously, with the design that you see on the side there.
Absolutely.
So wonderful. Now, one of the ways that's really powerful to talk about the impact of this program is to actually tell stories of patients and to show examples of the patients that are benefiting from this program. I know we have a couple of those today. Could you share a few of those examples?
Sure. The best way to see what we do is to meet some of our kids. So the first person I'd like to introduce you to is Delilah. Delilah came to us when she was about 3 years old, and she has idiopathic toe walker. What that means is she walks on her tiptoes, and we don't know why. So she wears ankle-foot orthoses, like the butterflies that I just showed you before, and that helps her walk with a heel-to-toe gait. And the hope is that as she reprograms her central nervous system and her brain to walk heel-toe instead of toe-toe, that we'll slowly over time be able to wean her away from those braces, and she'll walk in a more normal gait pattern without them. The next young man I'd like to introduce you to is Zavi. Zavi has a below-the-knee amputation. So he's a prosthetic patient. He had an amputation done when he was quite small. And you can see as he's grown, he's been with us since he was a baby. You can see that growth of his prosthetic devices. Zavi's goal is to be the first leg amputee to be in the Major League Baseball. And I'm excited to see that, and I certainly hope that when he gets to that point, I will be in those stands cheering him on.
So now, one thing about that picture of Zavi in the middle, you can see the whole way to the left, a very small device. You said that we try to get the children into the device as early as possible after their amputation. So like when a child is pulling up, an infant is trying to pull up and be able to walk around with the support of a coffee table or whatnot?
Yeah, typically when a child is able to pull up to stand and they start to cruise on furniture, that's when we want to incorporate a prosthesis. And the earlier that you start, the more that they incorporate that into their body image. So that when they get up in the morning, they put on their prosthesis. And it becomes part of their routine. And Zavi's a perfect example of that. And the last person I'd like to introduce you to at this point is Ariel. Ariel is from Honduras. He's in our hospital in Texas. And at age 11, he had to stop school so that he could support his family. Unfortunately, at age 15, he was in an accident where he came in contact with a live wire and had severe electrical burns that actually resulted in the amputation, and a pretty high-level amputation of his left leg, and also some injuries to his right arm. So at Shriners Children's, we made him a prosthesis that he was able to walk with and learn how to walk with. And in addition, he's been able to learn how to take up a new hobby that hopefully will become a new vocation for him, which is photography. And I think we actually have some video of Ariel as well.
Ariel might have a tough time pressing buttons on his camera, but when it comes to taking photos, he's a natural.
No sé exactamente por qué.
He wouldn't have known he enjoyed photography if he hadn't been a patient at Shriners and attending their in-hospital school. Teachers Marcia Seeley and Flor Mata said when Ariel came to them, he had dropped out of school at 11 in his home country and he didn't enjoy learning. But through encouraging him with the part he did enjoy, like sketching and photography, they've been able to expand his education to a level that might propel him to a better career when he returns to his home country of Honduras.
He finally said, I'm really interested in photography. And I said, oh, that's cool. That could be a way for you to go back home and actually do something with that as a career, because you're not going to be harvesting coffee beans anymore.
That's what he was doing when
Por eso perdí la pierna.
he's explaining to me how he was working in a coffee field to provide for his family, living on about $10 a day. Tragically, he picked up a cable in the fields and it was a live wire. The electrical burn cost him his left leg and resulted in limited use of his right arm. So as just a young teen, he must now find a new way to provide for his family.
But we're also trying to get them to investigate different means or different areas that would excite them as potential career paths.
Which is why his teachers connected Ariel with Joe.
La buena cosa que es digital, the good thing is digital.
Joe is the photographer on staff at Shriners. He now spends some of Ariel's school time teaching him the technical side of photography. The goal is for Ariel to get a job as a photographer when he goes home, something he could do despite his injuries and would hopefully pay the family's bills.
When we're doing these activities, we're helping to enhance or him to work on his fine motor skills, which is something he's working with in rehab. Taking him outside, he now has his new prosthetic, and so he's having the opportunity to navigate outside in the environment. So
We try to help in all areas with the patient so that when they leave here, they're the best equipped to return back home into their home environments, into their everyday lives as possible.
Es un muy buen hospital.
It's a good hospital, good people. They help you a lot, he says.
And the last patient I'd like to introduce you to is Serafina. Serafina has a plagiocephaly, and what that means is she has a head that's not quite symmetrical. There are some high spots and some flat spots. This is common with infants. The treatment is usually before they're 3 or 4 months old, and it extends usually only until they're about 11 or 12 months old. They wear cranial remolding helmets, which is what you see in this picture. They wear them 23 hours a day, and it really helps to reshape that softer skull during the infancy part of life. And I think we have a short video of her as well.
At 7 months old, Serafina's pediatrician noticed her head wasn't turning properly and referred her to Shriners Children's Erie. There, she was diagnosed with plagiocephaly and torticollis. Her mother, Ellen, was initially overwhelmed by the diagnosis and unsure of what to expect. After meeting with the Pediatric, Orthotic, and Prosthetic Services team, Ellen learned that a cranial remolding helmet could reshape Serafina's head and prevent long-term issues. Ellen was nervous at first, but soon realized that the helmet was gentle, easy to care for, and didn't interfere with Serafina's daily life. As Serafina made progress, Ellen's fears turned into relief. She watched her daughter graduate from the helmet in just 4 months. What seemed like an overwhelming challenge at the start was transformed into a manageable process with the support of Shriners Children's Erie. Ellen is now grateful for the reassurance, care, and guidance that made a long-lasting positive impact on Serafina's development.
So JoAnne, what I see there is the examples of the wraparound care that we provide, because you see the child life programs coming into play where we're helping that young man figure out his career because he got injured while he was out working in the coffee fields, and now he can be an aspiring photographer. As well as the wraparound care in terms of looking at, we had an example of a craniofacial patient there. We had an example of a burn patient. We had an example of complex orthopedics. So it really crosses the waterfront in terms of the types of patients and the specialties that we treat. So when patients come into our system, and a physician identifies that there is an issue that can be either corrected or an issue that can be treated with a prosthetic or orthotic, how does that process work? What's the entry point, and then how do we end up with them having one of these devices that helps their life so much?
The orthotic and prosthetic practitioners are part of the treatment in every Shriners Children's location. So we are on site in every location, the practitioners, technicians, equipment, and a lab. And they are part of that team, that healthcare team that evaluates that patient in our clinical setting. And then they, along with the patient and the family, talk about goals, the condition, strengths, weaknesses, and they come up with a treatment plan. So this slide really illustrates that. You can see on the top left, the patient is meeting with their practitioner. They've come up with what they wanted to do in the clinic, and they are then going to be seen, measured, casted, scanned for that device. At that point, it really transitions into the beginning of the design. We use computer-aided design, or a CAD program, where the practitioner who saw them in their Shriners Children's location does some modifications on their laptop, determines that design, the exact specifications, and then they hit send, at which point it comes to our fabrication location, which is on your right on the bottom, where they receive that scan, they carve a model of that child, and then they begin making that device per what that team had prescribed. It's then sent back to that location where that practitioner then fits that device, makes any adjustments, fine-tuning, adjustments, and repairs, and then any therapy that they might need as well.
So JoAnne, in the bottom right there, that is one of our 2 production facilities. We have one here in Tampa and one in Portland, obviously East Coast, West Coast. Give us a sense for how many people work in those facilities, how big they are, kind of the flow of work in those facilities every day.
So the Portland facilities really supports Spokane, Portland, and some of Honolulu and Salt Lake City. The rest, and it's smaller, it's within our hospital walls, so it's a smaller space. The second fabrication location's here in Tampa. It's about 20,000 square feet. There's about 30 employees there. There's about 11 employees in Portland. And those are the folks that are actually making each of those devices for each facility.
So we're really leveraging complex technology here, CAD design, the machines that are used. I remember my days in woodshop in high school, and I look at when I visit your facility, I think there's no way that I could use any of those devices or any of those things to produce anything. I mean, because this is really high technology with a lot of materials involved. And so we're using state-of-the-art equipment here. Now, one of the things that when I've met some of our patients, I see their devices are personalized to them, where they get to make it something that's really important to them so that they can be proud of it. It used to be when you got a broken arm, you had everybody sign your cast. Now, with these kind of devices, they can really make it their own. Talk about how that's done and how they can be involved in the production of their own device.
Great question. The more invested the child is in their care, the greater the outcome typically. So when we include them in for their orthotic design, so if we take this orthosis that we looked at earlier, or we can see up on that screen, the children get to pick their pattern, what design they want on them, what character, what psychedelic, what movie, what team they want on their device. We do that both with their orthotics and their prosthetics, and you can really see that. We have leopards, we have Moana we saw earlier, looks like we have clouds, we have a lot of team logos, anything that those kids want, and we actually see that change. As they get older, their preferences change, as do the designs on their devices.
So when you look at these kind of specialized requests we get from our patients, give an example of one of the more unusual and maybe even one of the most impactful devices that we provided. I think there's one young lady in particular we want to tell her story.
So we look at what their goals. So what are their goals? Not just what they want to do to walk and to stand, but what do they want to do? Do they want to be a Major League Baseball player? Do they want to play the guitar? So we just have a young lady, Grace, who has a passion for rock climbing. Grace was born without either her feet and her hands, so all 4 of her limbs have a deficiency, and she gets her devices from us at Shriners Children's, but now she wants to go that step further. She wants to do rock climbing, so we recently made her 4 prosthetics specifically for rock climbing. They're specific feet that are made, they're short, so that they can fit the next rung that she's leading up to. And for her arms, there's a different terminal device that helps have her climb that wall. And then as she started using it, we learned that we had to fine tune it even more. So we just finished a remake of her rock climbing arm so that she can better get to that next height up that wall.
And this piece here is what hooks on to the next rock or ledge. I forget what they call it, but the next thing she grabs onto. But she doesn't have nerve endings, obviously, in the end of this device. And so she really has to rely a lot more on her total body feel in order to figure out where she is and where she's going to grab onto next.
Amazing, because she has the core muscles that she has and also the trust that she has in her devices to know when she brings that foot up and hits that next rung, it's going to be there for her. When she reaches up and grabs that next rung, it's going to be there for her.
Wow. Impressive young lady, that's for sure. So we've talked about a lot of use of technology. We're even getting into more advanced technology with sensors, in particular with our scoliosis patients. Talk about how we're actually taking into account sensors and some distributed technology where we can monitor what's happening with patients from afar.
We've recently begun to implement a new program here where we are putting in a heat sensor in every scoliosis brace that we make. So what we're doing is we put that in there. The patients are given a wearing schedule, but now we're able to monitor what that wearing schedule is. So if we tell them that they should be wearing it 15 hours a day or 20 hours a day, we can then download that data and truly see how well they're doing with their compliance. And that really gives us a lot of information. We look at that in relationship to their x-rays to see, does the brace need to be adjusted? Is the curve progressing because they're not wearing it? And again, it brings everyone into that discussion to see the effect of wearing that brace. So if an adolescent young lady who may not particularly be thrilled to have to wear that brace to school can see how much it's helping her, then she'll be much more apt to hopefully wear it more.
And it's a little bit of pressure on the part of the parents and on the part of the physicians, because she knows that she's being monitored as well. It's mostly most scoliosis patients are female, but not all, but most are, and so she would know that she's being monitored. So therefore, compliance may be higher, and so therefore she'll have faster treatment and perhaps have to wear the brace not as long as she might not have to otherwise. Correct?
Absolutely, it's like a report card,
right?
An ongoing report card.
Great. Now, one of the things that's interesting is we get special requests like the rock climbing and ability to play musical instruments and whatnot. Some of those things are covered by insurance, other things are not. Talk a little bit about how we go the extra mile in terms of providing things like this for children, even though insurance companies will tell us, well, that's not covered under their insurance.
So we provide devices regardless of the ability to pay. Many of our patients have insurance. Most insurances look at medical necessity. So that determines whether they pay for a device or service or not. Many insurance companies or payers don't consider running or rock climbing or playing the guitar or throwing the javelin medically necessary. We at Shriners Children's do. That is necessary for them to develop, to grow, to aspire, to dream. So even though they have insurance, it may not be a covered item, but it is a necessity from our perspective, and we provide that care.
So our commitment is to make sure that a child is able to literally be a child and live the best life that child can possibly live, given the challenges that they have with deficiencies or the need for devices that help them adapt. And so regardless of what the insurance company says, we make sure that the child has what they need to live the life of a child. Talk about volume. I mean, we provide a lot of these kind of devices every single year, and talk about the costs, because some of these costs are relatively nominal or lower. Others are quite expensive, and many of our patients require 1-2 devices a year. And you saw pictures up on the screen of patients that have one device a year, a couple of devices a year, and we follow them their entire life up until they turn 18. So give us a sense for the volume we're talking about here.
As technology evolves, so do costs, unfortunately. So, but orthotic and prosthetic devices can really vary in cost. When we were talking about the ankle-foot orthosis, the plastic ankle-foot orthosis, this is a device that can cost between, $750 and $1,000 generally, depending on the exact design. A scoliosis brace would cost somewhere around $2,200 to $2,500, depending on design. When you go into prosthetics, it's a total different level of expense, because now we're talking about replacing knees, we're replacing feet. So a below-the-knee prosthesis is somewhere between $8,000 and $12,000, depending on which foot it is. And above the knee, where we're replacing both the knee and the foot, it can really be between $12,000 all the way up to probably $60,000, depending on what knee and foot we use. We make far more orthotic devices than prosthetic. Just to give you an example, last year we made close to 60,000 custom orthotic devices, so the plastic AFOs and KFOs, and we made close to 4,000 custom prosthetic devices.
So for those of you who are counting alone at home and may even have a calculator there, we're not talking about an insignificant amount of money. And if you take into account, this is just the production costs. Then we have staff time, we have facilities costs. So we have made a major investment in this program, and it goes back 103 years, because we started with these sort of devices here when children were being treated for polio 100 years ago. And so all of you that are donors make this possible, because obviously we get a little bit of money back from insurance companies, but it really only covers a fraction of our total cost in providing these so important devices for children in order to be able to live their lives. The POPS program is throughout our entire system. Many donors designate their gifts for the POPS program, and of course we invite folks to do that, supporting the very important and critical work that JoAnne and her team do. JoAnne, thank you so much for being with us today and sharing with us this incredibly powerful story and the impact that you and your team make. It is extraordinary when you see the videos of children who lose a limb and then suddenly are able to walk and able to ride a bike and able to do all of the things that a child should be able to do. We'd like to close today with a really powerful video and share with you the story of Grayson. Grayson has been treated in our system for a number of years at our Lexington Hospital. And Grayson is an impressive young man who is probably going to be a senator or president one day. And when you meet him, you'll understand what I mean. And Grayson has been a beneficiary of this program for many years. And so we want to close by sharing with you Grayson's story. We thank you for joining us here today. If you post questions in the chat, we'll do our best to follow up with your questions if you put in your contact information there. And we thank you for being a part of this webinar, and we hope you've enjoyed it and learned a little something along the way. And thank you for your support and involvement with Shriners Children's.
Hey, I'm Grayson. I'm 20 years old. I'm from Louisville, Kentucky, and I go to school at Harding University, which is in Searcy, Arkansas. I'm majoring in construction science with dreams of being a developer, and I'm from Ukraine.
We struggled to have kids to begin with, and we thought we were going to have our kids through adoption, and was, by the grace of God, able to have our daughter, and then quickly got pregnant with our middle son, and then thought, you know, we still needed to honor what was put on our hearts by the Lord for adoption, and so we ended up doing the adoption through Ukraine.
It's really in the hands and the control of the Ministry of Adoption there, and very little time to make decisions. So there's certainly anxiety that comes with that. We were introduced to Grayson and were drawn to him. We were told that he might have some medical issues, and when we visited him, we saw that. And the biggest medical issue with him was the PFFD, or the shortened femur. In his case, he had the most severe level of that, where he had no femur. So it was a severe medical event.
We had next door neighbors, good friends of ours, whose brother-in-law was a prosthetist at Shriners. So we end up talking to Eric while we're in Ukraine, and he said, "Get me some pictures and I'll give them to the doctor."
I was actually driving into work one morning at our old hospital on Richmond Road and get this phone call and like, "Eric, we need to talk to you right now." And I was like, "Go ahead." And they told me the details, told me about Grayson's diagnosis, all the issues that they had been told about the hip and how he may not be able to walk well, things along those lines. So I just kind of provided information to the family about what I would do if it was my adoption. In a nutshell, I just basically said, "Do it. We're going to be fine. Whatever he needs, he'll get it," and then go from there.
So then we knew what it was, we knew what we were going to do, which kind of eased our mind, and then, went on ahead and proceeded with the adoption process. And everybody was overjoyed. We get home and, big, huge crew at the airport waiting to meet us, and you just see Grayson, and he just lunges at Hattie and Brody and is hugging him. And I mean, it's just the sweetest thing. It was just like he was meant to always be in our family.
So Grayson has proximal focal femoral deficiency, which is a process that can be very different in different children, and it can involve a lot of deformity or difference in the hip joint, as well as the knee and the length and the shape of the femur, as well as the entire leg. And so in his case, he has a lot of shortening. So he has a limb that's very short compared to the other side. And some of the muscles don't work quite as well. Sometimes it's hard for the family to hear that perhaps doing an operation where you take off part of the leg is the best option that allows them to be as functional and avoid long periods of hospitalization. It's not the right answer for everyone, but after a long discussion and putting our heads together and lots of soul searching, it ended up being the correct one.
We're so grateful for Shriners for the opportunity that they have given us. They have let Grayson have top-notch, incredible care. They've given him the best fitting prosthetic legs. They've been available anytime we've had any issues. They have enabled him to lead a full life and not one time think that he's wearing a prosthetic leg.
One of the things that inspires me most about Grayson is he doesn't skirt his challenges, he doesn't run away from them, he meets them head on. And when he meets them head on, he does it, I think, with a spirit, not just of determination, but really a spirit that is infectious to those around him. He invites you to join him in what he's doing. And to me, that is a great encouragement. He is a person who brings realness and authenticity and genuineness.
I love Harding. At our orientation, each group kind of went to a different organization to either help clean up for the year or something like that. And my group happened to go to this organization called Lamplight, which is situated in the kind of the warehouse of a laundromat, which is located in a trailer park community. We go into this community and we knock on a door and we're like, hey, we just want to hang out. And so we get to come in and give these kids just an hour of what a childhood should be. And it just puts in perspective of this is the world that we live in, and if for an hour we can make it better, shouldn't we do that?
Easily as a father, I'm most proud of his character and his heart. He really, really is the definition of a servant leader.
I am so proud of Grayson because he has not let his leg define him. People really love him and embrace him, and they see that true character of his.
When I think of the future, I get scared because of how awesome the present is. I just don't know how much better it can get.